this is kind of a lot more to do with really us working things out together, which is how I like to do things rather than me kind of dictating to you, but also trying to get you to see that there is some research out there and just really have a discussion of it. So we are looking at creatine for women, girls, women. That's predominantly what we're doing. You all know who I am. I'm thinking there are some names on here I haven't seen or haven't seen in a while. I have seen them, but not in a while. So you know about me and who I am, but let's just start off. So really what we're going to try and do today is have a little bit of a Q&A afterwards. I may not know everything. I do not ever claim to know everything, but I think it will be good to see what's out there in terms of people's minds. What are the things that are stopping you taking it? If you are taking it already, that would be interesting as well to know. If you have started or whatever, and what created that shift, I think would be great. But I think it's also just really important to get some facts and to understand that creatine, yes, we keep hearing from all the kind of scientists and fitness and nutritionists and all sorts of people that creatine is one of the most studied and researched supplements. However, it isn't until really recently that it's really been studied in women. And then those outcomes are beginning to show in women, because it's always like everything in the fitness industry has always been, and in medicine has always been trialed and research been done on men, not women, and not enough women, even at that. So it is just important to understand that things have changed and there is more research out there, and it's looking fairly promising for all of us, for women. So it is a compound that comes with 3 amino acids. It's creatine, which is it's actually naturally produced. We produce it naturally, but also we get it through seafood and red meat. So already you can see that if you're a vegetarian, you potentially wouldn't be getting as much creatine as you wouldn't be getting as much creatine as somebody who eats meat. And we also, like I said, the liver, the pancreas, and the kidneys produce some. Your body stores creatine as phosphocreatine, primarily in your muscles, and that's where it's used as energy. So in the past, it was always talked about that creatine was taken orally by athletic performances. So, you know, if you're trying to build muscle, maintain, you're delivering some kind of athletic performance, you would be using creatine. But that is not always the case at the moment. Okay. We will get time for a bit of a Q&A. I will be sipping in between. So creatine, it is something that's naturally occurring in our muscles, and we need it in order to, it plays a key role in what's called sort of the energy production, ATP, right? So there's this whole energy cycle within our muscles. So that's within our cells, within the muscles, within the cells, within the muscles. So we're talking like cellular level. What happens is there is an energy production cycle. Estrogen is involved in there too. You've got water in there as well. And then you've got creatine, which is produced. And as a byproduct, you also then, you want to suck up that creatine and use it again. It breaks down and it's used again to create more energy. So that's this kind of cycle. I'm really breaking it down into a very basic level. Some of you may know more than this, but I don't really want to go into like too much detail, because I think it's just important enough to know that creatine plays a key role in our energy production, along with water, along with estrogen as well. So hydration is really important. Estrogen also plays a part in energy production, right? So there's this little cycle that's going along. And where creatine plays a part is also that this ATP, it's broken down and then it's being able to be used again. So you kind of are using a very efficient system within your muscles where you are able to utilize and produce more energy. Where is it found? It's found in red meat, fish, and our body does make it, as I just said at the beginning. But other than that, you would have to have it as a supplement. So it's something that you could supplement should you need to. So really, should we be taking creatine? Should women or anybody really be taking creatine? And as I said, most of the research in the past has been done on men. So it's been historically also then therefore marketed to men. and you kind of have this image of these guys who are kind of all, you know, shredded and full of muscle, really well built and in the gym, and they are taking supplementation, and one of those supplements would be creatine. However, there is increasing research. There's 3 research articles that I think if I can remember the slides correctly, at the end I list them. And there are a few more that actually are now showing that creatine for women can also be really beneficial, actually, on several levels. But it helps to support energy production, just as in men. It also helps with recovery from exercise. And it also is being shown to help with brain function, alertness, and kind of that brain fog as well. And there is really no evidence to show that there are any adverse reactions from taking creatine, such as bloating or bulkiness or women looking different. However, I think we need to also take a little bit of stance aside here, as you all know I love doing, because I think our personal lived experience can be very different from what we're being told should be happening, right? I mean, this is why I'm here, because I was told I couldn't possibly be in any stage of menopause, when I actually was very clearly going through perimenopause for a good 8 years, 10 years before I even realized it was happening. So we all know that what they tell us is meant to be happening may not be exactly how we're feeling when we're taking this thing. So we can definitely discuss that in a second. So over the years, there's been limited research on women historically. However, most recently, and you guys, again, if you're with me, you're following me on Instagram or wherever it is, or you're part of my training club or whatever, or have done one of my programs, you'll know that I do harp on about Dr. Stacey Sims, who has done and is continuing to do a lot to bring forward research on women. And she works with athletes, she works with performance, performance, with helping to support athletes with their performance, their recovery, and getting them to operate at their max, at their best, right? And not just her, but as I said, there's a couple of other research articles that I have found, which have been absolutely fascinating in really explaining that women, as by nature, have slightly lower muscle creatine stores than men, right? So and also the one thing to really remember is that men and women are really different, physiologically different. What we eat, how we eat, what fuel our body needs, even down to things like, for example, with women, we are far more front in our legs and our body, we are far more front loading dominant. So our quads will build up very quickly, but we're very poor we don't have much glute and hamstring activation. So rear groups don't operate really well. What a strange thing. Like, how did, who knew that? So actually we should be doing a lot of work on our hamstrings and our glutes, not just to get a big booty, but actually to get functionally better, not just because it may look better for some people, but it's really important. Whereas we will build quad strength quite quickly. I mean, I don't know if you guys are training and you're finding that, but for me, for sure, the first thing, if I'm ever going to get something, is quads, glutes and hamstrings. I mean, they are way back the line, right? And there is actually a physiological reason for that. Really strange. So in the same way, creatine, whilst it's super important for us, we don't always need to take it for muscle growth, right? We have less of it. We potentially need less of it, and we may need it for different reasons as well. So what we do know that for women is that by supplementation, we can enhance our performance, our recovery, and cognitive function. That's the biggie, right? And also energy levels as well. So those are the things that I think are perhaps what's of most interest at the moment to the group of women I'm talking to right now, but it may not be, because some of you might be weightlifting, which I'm hoping you are doing, and you're actually then thinking, right, can creatine enhance my performance? Can it help me to push that little bit more? Can it help me to recover more quickly so that I can then train again? And is there an impact if I'm going through my menopausal years? So that's kind of an interesting one. So what are the benefits of creatine for women, which is exactly what we've just started talking about and I just mentioned. So I think the biggest and the most empowering thing that I personally felt whilst doing my research is that actually creatine, there is increasing research that shows that creatine can help to support brain function and help with mental clarity, memory, and focus. And I think for women who are struggling with brain fog, even in their post-menopausal years, because obviously symptoms get better but don't go away, this can be a real game changer. But it also has benefits in helping to retain muscles. So your muscles get thicker. Don't know whether you understand what I mean by that. Your muscles look fuller and plumper, right? So it's because creatine is drawing water into your cells. Okay, that's what it does. It draws water into your cells, so your cells look more plump. So you look thicker, you look like you've worked out. Your muscle shape and retention stays. Now, this is particularly important if you are going through menopause, postmenopause, where your estrogen levels are pretty on the floor. Well, they're non-existent. Your progesterone is really not there. You've got nothing to kind of fill you up and plump you up. This can be something that can really help as well. You get improved endurance and performance and a faster recovery. Okay. And that's what research shows in women as well as in men, but in women we're talking about. And also this isn't just on athletes. Okay. This is on everyday women who perhaps are performing different types of exercises and are given a different regime. And the exciting one as well is hormonal health benefits. So it may help to reduce the risk of osteoporosis, but I think that's probably also more related to the fact that you're less tired and you're able to train more and harder, and therefore you also recover better. So I think there's a little bit of this is kind of almost like a side benefit of it. We're not sure whether there's a direct benefit in creatine, calcium, bone health. I'm not sure, all of that. And there's benefits to mood regulation. For sure, I think that there is a correlation to that because, again, if your energy levels are high, you're able to exercise and train better, you're then able to feel better about yourself, and that's going to help with your mood too. Okay? So there are proven benefits to women for creatine. Okay, so there are lots of myths and there are lots of kind of things that people are thinking and feeling about creatine. I think there were some questions as well that were asked when we sent out the email. I'm hoping that everything is being cleared slowly as we go through. But these are some of the common myths that I hear. These are some of the common questions I get asked or some of the common myths that you hear. And it's good to just start kind of unraveling them a little bit. So one of the things I was told is that, as by Juliana, was that actually creatine isn't really digested by your gut. It kind of bypasses it. So therefore, something like bloating shouldn't really be happening due to digestive issues. I think the situation. So let's just imagine you're having creatine. Now, again, what I do need to talk about is the dose of creatine here. So this might be on another slide, but I'm going to bring it in here. So there is a lot of creatine is one of the supplements that you don't need to load, right? So you really, as women, we don't need to load it. Okay. If you are a high performing athlete and you are with a coach that's training you and you have a team of people looking after you, you're not going to be coming to me for this advice. You're going to be looking at your coach. So I'm really not talking to that demographic of people, right? I'm talking to general public, you, me, people who are interested here and right now. you're not going to need a loading dose. You're not going to be needing to take 20 grams of creatine for 5 days to get your creatine levels up. That just isn't going to happen. For us, for women, and for those who are not looking to go, to do the Olympics or whatever that may be. And don't get me wrong, I train like an athlete because I train probably 5 times a week, and I train pretty hard. I do a lot of weight training. I also do, maybe I train twice a day, so there's a different level at which you train. And I get told quite often by my coach and my trainer that I train at that level, where there's a lot of demand on my body, but I still wouldn't need a loading dose. So you need between 3 and 5 grams of creatine a day. So that's a tiny amount. And when some of the research perhaps refers to things like, or mentions things like hair loss, bloating, and the other kind of myths that are out there, it's usually in correlation with much higher doses of creatine. We're looking at 10 to 20 grams a day, right? And that is not what we need. So we are looking at 3 to 5 grams. 5 grams is a really good one to start with. So it's a tiny, small scoop of creatine. So there is really no correlation between creatine and hair loss. Okay. There's minimal relevance in the evidence that's shown to women. So there really just isn't. It may have been that the men that were taking it perhaps were taking other steroids and taking other kinds of stuff, maybe caffeine and other stuff that might have been creating havoc with their hair. Or it may have been that they were actually men who were going to go bald anyway and were having this. I don't know. I have no idea. So it's really important that that's one thing. There isn't an association with hair loss and creatine. Just doesn't happen. Going back to the water and the bloating, when we take creatine, as I said right from the start, one of the first things you might find is that you're quite thirsty. And it's really important to keep an eye on your water intake. Okay. So you may find that you're drinking double the amount of water you would normally drink. And by that, what I mean is if you're drinking about 1 litre of water or 1.5 litres of water a day, you might end up drinking anything up 2.5 to 3. Okay. And you will end up also peeing quite a lot. You wee out quite a lot. Creatine needs water. Your cells need water in order for creatine to become more effective to actually produce energy. So it's like all of these different things, they come together. If you take one part of it out, it's not going to do what you need, right? Another thing people say is, oh, do you get headaches with creatine? Well, no, you don't get headaches with creatine. You may get headaches because you're not drinking enough water. Okay, so there is important to understand that the water is being sucked up into your muscles, into your cells in the muscles. It's not under the skin and it's not digestive. So it shouldn't cause bloating. Okay. Creatine is just for athletes. Absolutely not. It's showing and being proven to show that it's an important supplement that goes beyond just the performance as an athlete, but helps to support cognitive, metabolic, and hormonal health as well. And it's great for general health, energy, and aging. Any more myths? Let's have a look. Okay, so it's really interesting that back in the day there was this myth and the talk amongst fitness coaches, personal trainers, anybody in the fitness industry that actually taking creatine with your whilst you were still menstruating would have an impact on your menstrual cycle. And I think this came about really because any research that was being done on women taking creatine was done on women athletes taking creatine. And back in the day, still happening now, and it shouldn't be, women were given the same diet and same training and same protocol as men. And actually what was happening to them was that their body was being put under too much stress, unnecessary stress, and therefore they would lose their period. Now, because they were taking supplementation, potentially like creatine, to help them to retain more energy and perform better, there was immediately this association between creatine and loss of period. But actually, it was the fact that the whole thing was being done wrong. They weren't given the right fuel. They weren't given the right rest. They weren't given the right exercises, the training exercises to do in order to help them to perform better. I think there is that association. And actually, what is being shown now on the research on women in general is that it actually may help women when energy levels are slightly lower in their luteal phase, right? So you've had your follicular phase, estrogen is nice and high. You've had ovulation, and then you've got your luteal phase. Progesterone starts to get high. Estrogen is still high, but starts to drop down. And that's when you might find yourself kind of the last 2 weeks before your period, where you start to feel a little bit lethargic. If you're having HRT and you're having that cycle, you're still using estrogen and progesterone, you may find that that's exactly the same for you. But actually, what they're saying is that with creatine, the recovery, your fatigue seems to work especially well when estrogen levels drop. So just imagine what happens when you're going through perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause when you have no estrogen, obviously, unless you're on HRT, and then you do. But still, the creatine can be a really excellent supplement to help support all of those things that I just mentioned. So it's not something to be feared when taking, if you are still having a period, if you're not in perimenopause or menopause or postmenopause. Okay, so here we are. So as I said, and we all know this, or if you've been on my courses and my programs, or you've listened to any of my talks on menopause, you know that with the decline of estrogen, we get a decline of muscle mass, a decline of strength, and a decline in bone density, which all lead to a trajectory of an increased risk to health, to ill health, increased risk of bone density, osteoporosis, increased risk of obesity, increased risk of diabetes, and many other diseases, right? So what the researchers are saying is that by taking this small amount of creatine, and there is, some protocols that need to be followed with creatine, and one of them is taking it regularly, which means daily. This can help to mitigate that muscle loss and improve strength. How? Well, because you're absorbing water into your cells in your muscles, you're giving it creatine externally, taking it into your muscles, and that in turn is going to give you more energy, which means you're going to be able to push a little bit more weight, you're going to recover better, you're going to feel better, and the whole cycle stays with you. And that's it. You're reducing your risk of all those diseases and all of those things we mentioned above. Okay, so you can actually start to build muscle as well, as long as you eat enough protein. So we also know that in menopausal women, creatine can help to support cognitive function, reducing the risk of age-related decline in cognitive function. So things like, brain health, supporting brain health. And as I said, in particular, cognitive function is a big one. And that's something that we shouldn't dismiss lightly. And I am not one for supplementation at all. I avoid it wherever I possibly can. And if I do need to take it, I really make sure that I'm trying to get the best I can. And also having it the right way. So the one thing that you will find with creatine is that there's hundreds and hundreds of different types. And it is just really important to make sure you are having creatine monohydrate, because it is the one that has been the most researched, and it's also the most effective. It's the most easily taken up and absorbed by our body. It is also really important to make sure that you are not getting, or ideally not getting, the creatine that has any flavorings and additives. Okay, you don't need it. You really don't. It's like, you just want to take what you need to take. You don't need to confuse yourself by taking an extra flavored something because you're adding something to it. Basically, making one side of you better, and then the other side of you not so great because you've taken some rubbish with it. So you're taking creatine. I take Creapure, which is one that it's great. It's got it's got really good reviews, and if you look at what's in it and what it is, it's really clean. It's really effective. It's fairly cheap for what it is, particularly if you're having between 3 and 5 grams a day. And it's got no it's got no fillers, no additives. You don't need any of that. Okay, so that's the type that I would suggest. I mean, I've said I use bulk, but you can use any type you like. Just make sure it is absolutely clean. Look at the back of the packets. Like I say to you, for everything, it's like the collagen. It all looks lovely, it all looks fancy, but you literally need just the collagen peptide. You don't need anything else. It's the same with the creatine. Keep it simple and as clean as possible. And by the way, that scoop there is not the scoop for amount of creatine, unless that's way too big. That's protein powder. But I think it's just an example of what it could be. So, how are we doing for time? Okay, great. I think we are coming to the end. So, as I said, Harry's outdone himself with these slides today. They're really good. I'm enjoying them. So do we need a loading dose? No, we don't. We really, really don't. It isn't necessary. So I just think, that honestly, it really isn't necessary. Not for us. I think having between 3 and 5 grams per day would be great. Oh, thank you, Marla, for sharing that. And I will come to that in a second. But it's fantastic that you're doing weight training at the gym to improve your strength and taking it. Yeah, yeah. So we can talk about that in a second. So literally, what you're trying to do is you're taking 3 to 5 grams. I would suggest 5 grams. And those of you who take creatine will know that. Okay, I have an issue with creatine, right? I'm a bit of a princess. I think I'm being a bit of a wimpy thing about this. But I just hate the fact that it doesn't dissolve. So you put it into water and it doesn't dissolve. So you swig it back, because I take it neat. I don't really drink shakes or anything like that. So I don't have anything to put it into. Don't like putting it in yogurt or whatever. I don't really have much yogurt. So really, my only option is in water, straight you go, off you go. Stop being just do it. And it's quite crunchy. So it makes me feel a bit oof. But other than that, I will have 5 grams just straight off every day. The consistency is key in terms of long-term use. And one of the questions was, when should you have it? So this is also one of those things that just literally, what I say to a lot of my clients and women that I work with and support is, number one, the most important thing is, if you're going to be taking it, is to take it. That's number one. And take it when you remember to take it. If you put it in as part of your routine, whatever that is, whenever that is, that's more important right now than really getting into the fine minutiae detail of when should I be taking it. Because what are you using it for? Okay, because there are some schools of thought that say you take it before, an hour to half an hour before you train, so that there's energy in there for you to then push that extra set, and then you recover after. Some people say take it after, because it's going to help you with recovery. Yeah. Me, I'm going to tell you the truth, honest truth. I've tried it before. I've tried it after. I've tried it at night before I go to bed because I couldn't remember when else to take it. I've tried it in the morning. Honest to God, I really can't see a massive difference. The only thing that I would say really made a difference was taking it consistently. I preferred taking it in the day, just at any point that I could remember it, because I drink a lot of water when I drink mine. So having it before bed didn't make sense at all. I don't really need it before bed, I don't need that energy. And it was really taking it consistently that made the difference, not oh, I take it, I've suddenly got this. It's not like a caffeine hit. You take a caffeine shot and you're like buzzing. It doesn't really work like that. What it seems to do is that if you take it consistently over a period of time, you'll start to notice that your energy levels will. I'll give you an example. About 2, 3 o'clock, doesn't matter what my diet's like, doesn't matter how good my diet is, because I get up very early at 4:30 in the morning. By about 2, I'm ready for bed, right? My body's going sleep time. So I'm ready for nap. I'm ready for a nap. I love having an afternoon nap. I've learned to become a napper. That's me. But once I've started taking creatine regularly, I tend to find that I can go the whole day till 9 o'clock before I go to bed, 9:30, without having that dull lull. So that's one of the things that's happened. Another one of the things I've noticed is that I'm a lot more alert. I'm not searching for those words anymore. I'm not kind of going, okay, I'm not having that feeling of being overwhelmed. My brain fog seems to have lifted. And that has made a massive difference to how I feel as well, my mood, and how confident I feel in myself. So those are the couple of things on a positive that have happened to me. Can I push more weight? Potentially, yes. Is it just the creatine? No, I'm probably eating a lot better. I'm eating more. Does my body and do my muscles look thicker? Yes. Is that from the creatine? Potentially, yes, because I'm drinking more water and pulling more water into my muscles. Um, but it's a chicken and egg because I'm actually able to lift more weight. Don't know if any of this is making sense, but I'm hoping it is. So, the thing is, I think the key is to remember that we're going to look at the kind of pros and cons and look at some questions as well in a minute, because I do think there are side effects that we may be experiencing that we need to be mindful of not dismissing as, oh no, you know what, don't be so silly, it can't be creatine because, research says. But I also equally think we need to think about everything else when we're looking at taking a supplement. Okay. So on the whole, the summary is right here. Consistency matters more than the loading phase, which we've talked about. It does support menstrual cycle and menopause according to the research that we have. It is not harmful, it doesn't have any harmful side effects when it's taken within the recommended doses. And as I said to you, we don't need to be taking 20 grams. We don't need to be taking 10 grams. We can be taking between 3 and 5 grams, with 5 grams is your optimal dose. And women do benefit from it overall. There are, however, some caveats here that I would like to just add in. These are the research articles. I will be really happy to send this to you, send these articles to you, and there's probably lots more, but I'm happy to send you the link to these articles in the email that I send you following on from this webinar, just to get some feedback and stuff. But if you are taking medication of any kind, it would be really important for you to seek the approval of your medical practitioner, your doctor, your consultant, whoever it may be that you're under, the nurse, to make sure that you are okay to take creatine along with whatever medication you are taking, or along with whatever condition you may have. For example, there's if you've got any kidney issues, you should not be taking creatine generally. If you have got thyroid issues, there's a little bit of research for it. There's a bit of research that says it's good. There's a bit of research that said it's not so good. So again, it's something that I would go to your medical practitioner, the consultant, whoever is looking after you, your nurse, and say, I've heard that creatine can be good for menopausal symptoms, can be good for strength training, can be good for these other things. Is it something that I can take, looking at what I'm taking and what I'm having at the moment in terms of my medication? Because it can interfere with some medication and make some conditions worse. Okay, so that is really, really important to remember. So I'm going to stop sharing and then